Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Beyond Access series. We're so happy that you're joining us today. Tonight, the topic is around assistive technology. And so we're here with our assistive technology teams for both the Center of Assistive Technology and Tech Solutions for District 75. And we're excited that they're here to share information with you all. But I have the privilege of setting the ground rules for tonight, as we always do. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jose Rios Lua. I'm the Director of Family Empowerment and Communications for the Division of Specialized Instruction and Student Support. More importantly, I have the pleasure of serving as the host for the Beyond Access series, and I will be here facilitating and moderating throughout the evening. Tonight, as in every Beyond Access night, you will have the opportunity to ask questions using the Q&A function on your screen. You'll be able to type your questions, and the team will be checking that throughout the session and answering questions. But we also have some time dedicated towards the end to answer some live and over audio. Tonight, we'll only be answering questions around assistive technology, but if you have questions that are specific to your child, please feel free to put them in to the Q&A, and we will share that with our family engagement team and follow up with you all tomorrow. Before we dive into the presentation for today, a couple more things. This session is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. I know that for some folks who joined us last week, we're waiting for the upload of the academic screener session. There was some issues with the file corruption, but it looks like it's getting fixed, and we're hoping that we'll be able to get that up tomorrow along with the recording of this session. So just wanted to clear that up from the get-go. So without any further ado, I want to turn it over to Suzanne Sanchez, our Senior Director of Therapeutic Services, to give us a quick intro and to intro the team. Suzanne, good evening.
Thank you so much, Jose, and good evening, everybody. It's my absolute pleasure to be here for another Beyond Access series session tonight. I am so excited to present members of our assistive technology leadership to you all tonight. You're going to see and feel very quickly that they are so passionate about this work and so passionate about how assistive technology can support students with disabilities. So it's really my pleasure to introduce assistive technology directors David Caraca and Colleen Warren, and Lindsay Huntley, who is our AT and AAC supervisor. So David, why don't you get started?
Good evening, and thank you, Jose and Suzanne, and to everyone organizing this series. Thank you to the parents for being here. We're so happy to be here tonight to discuss assistive technology as part of the Beyond Access series. Next slide. Again, we appreciate the opportunity for the New York City Department of Education Central AT teams to provide an introduction to assistive technology, or AT, and an overview of the AT consideration to the AT evaluation process. Next slide. So as part of tonight's agenda, we will be introducing the two assistive technology teams and the shared mission of both teams. We will be reviewing the differences between assistive technology, or AT, instructional technology, or IT, and universal design for learning, or UDL. We will also be defining assistive technology according to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. We will be reviewing the AT consideration and assessment process and the relationship of each in supporting students. We will review our AT toolkit and present tools that are most commonly recommended for communication, reading and writing, math, and executive functioning skills. And again, at the end, we will wrap up with a Q&A. Next slide. Both teams, the District 75 Assistive Technology team, as well as the Center for Assistive Technology, share one mission, and that is providing high-quality assessments, training, resources, and implementation support to students, families, teachers, and all DOE staff. Next slide. The NYCDOE central AT teams consist of the Center for Assistive Technology, who provide evaluations and support to preschools, charter schools, non-public schools, schools within District 1 through 32. The District 75 Assistive Technology team provides evaluations and support to specialized public schools within District 75, home instruction, and hospital instruction. Next slide. In the next two slides, we'll focus on the differences and relationships of universal design for learning, instructional technology, and assistive technology, and how these impact the learning environment. UDL is focused on removing the systemic barriers to learning by providing flexible options for all learners. Now, the emphasis here is on all learners. Instructional technology, as with UDL, IT is focused on all students and is the practice of designing lessons with the resources that are required for learning, such as using computers, tablets, and software programs. The important thing to point out is that the resources can change depending on the lesson and the learning objectives. AT, on the other hand, is focused on supporting the individual needs of the student and increasing their ability to participate in the learning environment. Next slide. This is a good visual demonstrating the differences between IT, AT, and universal design for learning. The baseball game is synonymous with the student's ability to access the curriculum and classroom learning opportunities. The picture on the left is an example of instructional technology. All participants have been treated equally by providing them with a crate. If we focus on the student on the right, we notice that even with the crate, the student is not able to access the game. The second picture is an example of assistive technology. The individuals are provided supports based upon their needs to be able to access the learning opportunity. The third picture is an example of universal design for learning, where the focus is removing the learning barrier for all students, in this case, the fence, which is an important point. Sometimes a student or students may not need additional supports if the curriculum is universally designed. Next slide. So in this slide, we are delving deeper into the differences between IT and AT, instructional technology and assistive technology, which can be confusing as IT and AT involve technology in supporting students. In comparing the two pictures, we see an example of instructional technology on the left versus assistive technology on the right. The difference between IT and AT is determined by a threshold of benefit versus need. Benefit versus need. On the left, the students are benefiting from the use of laptops to participate in the lesson, but may still be able to participate in the lesson even without the laptops. Whereas the student on the right has assistive technology that has been specifically designed for their learning needs. Without AT or assistive technology, the student cannot access the curriculum. This is the most important difference between instructional technology and assistive technology. Next slide. So this is an example of a student participating in a District 75 classroom that is incorporating UDL principles, or Universal Design for Learning principles. The student is participating in a math lesson with fractional tiles. It's a hands-on or tactile activity that provides low-tech solutions to access learning. Hands-on activities, both low and high-tech, offer a way to understand abstract concepts. With some adaptations and thoughtful strategies, mathematics, literature, history, and other subjects can be presented through projects that require thinking, constructing, listening, predicting, photographing, and any number of sensory-rich, self-starting academic adventures. Next slide. And now we come to assistive technology. So let's define AT. According to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is a federal law that protects students with disabilities in the educational environment, AT is any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. Again, we want to emphasize the difference between instructional technology and universal design for learning. Assistive technology is focused on the individual needs of students. Next slide, please. So here we're providing some visual representations of assistive technology. From low-tech to high-tech options. Low-tech options can be simple, requiring little maintenance, such as pencil grips. And we know that these pictures are quite small, but the picture to the top all the way to the left is actually a pencil grip, whereas high-tech options such as sophisticated communication devices are more complex and require support and training. We will be reviewing more of these AT tools later on in the presentation. So now we're going to transition and we will be discussing assistive technology consideration and assessment process. So as we see from the visual on this slide, the AT consideration and assessment process is made up of equally important components that are necessary to support the ongoing assistive technology needs of students. Next slide. This is another sort of flow of the assistive technology process. So the AT process begins with considering the needs of the student and their ability to access the curriculum. It's important to point out that assistive technology must be considered during every IEP meeting. A parent or guardian can initiate the request for an AT evaluation. If an AT need is identified by the IEP team, the team then initiates a request for reevaluation with parental consent. A referral is then sent to one of the central assistive technology teams. An evaluation is then scheduled and conducted by one of the AT teams. The evaluation recommendations are then reviewed and adopted by the IEP team. Training is very important, and training is provided as necessary or by request of the IEP or the school-based teams. So if there are questions about the AT referral process and whether your child needs AT, the best place to start is to reach out to your IEP or your school-based team. Next, we will turn it over to Colleen, as she will be reviewing the assistive technology assessment process.
Thank you, David. Okay, so the next few slides, we are going to go over what happens during an assistive technology evaluation. So when considering AT, we use the SET framework that has been developed by Joy Zabala. This is the backbone of any thorough AT assessment. The industry currently does not have a standardized tool for AT, assistive technology, but we use this comprehensive framework to guide our AT assessments. The SET framework is what the IEP team and the AT team uses to determine what AT supports the student's needs. So what is SET? So I'm going to briefly describe the SET, which is S stands for student, E, environment, T for task, and the last T is tools. And please note that tools are not the immediate first thing we determine. The SET framework is very much student oriented. In the next few slides, we will go over how the SET framework was used to determine AT for an actual student and a case study. So meet Sarah. Here is Sarah. She is 13 years old and attends the 8th grade in a public school. Her diagnosis is cerebral palsy. She navigates the school using a power wheelchair. Sarah receives the following related services. She receives counseling, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and adaptive physical education. She requires and is provided with preferential seating on task focusing prompts, and also double time for all examinations. So when going through the SET framework, the first part is learning about the student. Aside from the basic background information we've obtained, when we're going through the SET framework, we collaborate with all the team members that are working with the student to learn about the student's abilities and struggles. It can be a combination of the following. It includes a reviewing of documents such as existing evaluations, progress reports, the current or any existing IEPs, meeting with teachers and other providers and all the support staff to discuss the concerns and goals related to assistive technology, meeting with the student and discussing their goals and what they like or dislike, what has been working and what has not been working with accessing their curriculum, as well as meeting with the family to discuss concerns and goals related to assistive technology and the access to the student's curriculum. In this situation, we determined how Sarah, the student, can best access or use AT. And she uses her left index finger and thumb for direct selection on an iPad. So in addition to gathering all the background information about Sarah, there was one piece of information that we needed to get was this, is how can she access the technology? E stands for environment. So in addition to knowing the student's actual physical environment, such as the location, what type of building they're in, does she have the proper desk to support her in the classroom, what type of seating arrangement, and what type of chair she uses. She's using a power chair, right? It's also really important to understand and review and know what the current technology is in place. What operating system is this school using? Because assistive technology is meant to support the student in their current environment. So for example, if the school is a Mac school, meaning they use a Mac operating system or OS system, we would not be recommending or looking at programs related to Windows operating system, because all the peers and all the teachers are using a Mac operating system based software. And please keep in mind that there are some programs that may be available on one platform, such as Apple iOS system, and they are not available on Windows or Chrome platforms, and vice versa. So analyzing and assessing the environment allows us to provide a successful implementation and use of the AT device all around. T, task. So the task can and should be an IEP goal that has been identified as one in which the student has been struggling to achieve despite the existing supports without AT. For Sarah in this example, Sarah's task involves writing and being able to reference or refer and analyze her own writing. As you can see in the visual here, this writing, her handwriting is very difficult for her own self to see what she wrote, and it's not giving the information, the content, and showing what she knows and how she can answer a question during her classwork. So during the evaluation, the teacher had a worksheet activity. So Sarah was able to trial the AT device during the evaluation and a program to complete her actual writing task. Then what they did was they provided Sarah with this iPad during the evaluation. She was able to scan the worksheet and which digitized the worksheet, and it allowed her to type her answer directly on the worksheet by using the iPad. Here's another worksheet. You can see she typed these answers. So she was able, using the AT during the evaluation, to complete her writing task on the digitized worksheet. In the next slide, we will outline what was actually provided, the final T that stands for tools. and what were the tools that were provided or we are recommending to enable Sarah to accomplish her task. So during the assessment, the tools in which we feature matched to support Sarah are an iPad, which is a touch tablet, using applications called DocScan and Notability. With assistive technology in place, Sarah was able to complete the independent writing task by using the AT software to annotate, highlight, encircle, and type on her worksheets in all subjects for note-taking and for exams. The AT enabled and allowed Sarah to type her work or use dictation instead of handwriting, which is using her voice to speak into the mic, and the program will type out the words for her. She was able to independently organize and find her documents by storing them digitally into a digital binder. So Sarah has cerebral palsy, so her motor skills may be impacted. It's very difficult for her to manipulate a notebook or a binder with lots of pieces of papers. So using a digital binder, so it's like a binder, a physical one, but it's just a digitized version, she was able to organize her work and find them. In addition, she had access to digital classroom materials instead of print-based, paper-based copies, which were difficult to manage. Her classroom materials were all digitized. So this summarizes a condensed version of how an AT evaluation is conducted using the SET framework. And I am going to introduce Lindsay Huntley, who is going to take some time to go over some of our AT tools in our AT toolkit. So Lindsay.
Good evening. So if you can go to the next slide. So here is the AAC continuum. If we're talking about augmentative and alternative communication, here's a continuum of tools. When Colleen spoke about tools, there's a variety of tools that we use during our assessments. It could be a single message communicator where we can have yes, no. It can be a sequential message, the green button, where we can say, hi, my name is Lindsay. How are you? Then we go to simple leveled speech generating devices where it's a black box with 8 locations where we can have communication boards in it with recorded messages saying, I want, I go. And then we move up the continuum to tablets with communication applications, such as Android tablets that are speech generating devices that are dedicated, or iOS tablets or iPads with communication applications. And finally, the most high-tech devices we offer are things like eye gaze devices, where the user can activate the computer using their eyes. Next slide, please. When we're looking at communication, there's a variety of communication apps that we assess our students with: Proloquo Go, SnapCore First, or they changed the name to TD Snap most recently in the new iOS update. And there's Go Talk Now, Cough Drop, Lamp Words for Life, Speak for Yourself, Touch Chat, and Talk Suite. All of these communication applications use symbol systems to allow our students to communicate. So if you're looking at something like Lamp Word for Life, which is in the bottom left corner, that's a motor planning app. So it has 2 layers of navigation, and it's designed to meet the communication needs of children with autism or other developmental disabilities, and it's based on the language acquisition through motor planning. So it's consistent motor planning throughout the whole system. So once a student recognizes where a symbol is, it will not change. Another application we can look at is Proloquo Go. And this is the top left. And you can see that there's color-coded borders, and that's based on pronouns, nouns, verbs, adjectives. And this is an example of where a student can say syntactically correct sentences. Other communication apps that we offer could be phrase-based, where a student touches one button and it says, I want to read a book. And most of these communication applications just work on iOS or on an iPad. However, Cough Drop is an application that works across platforms. So it works on an iPad, an Android tablet, a PC computer, a Mac computer, and a Chromebook. All of these applications have been really great, where they've been adding a variety of pictures to identify students. So they have different skin tones and they have different voices. They have male and female, child, teenager. So they're great. Next slide.
Actually, Lindsay, I wanted to ask if you can explain very briefly why a student would need to use AAC.
Yes. So our students can use communication devices for a variety of reasons. They can be nonverbal, where they have no verbal output of words, and then they would use a communication device to augment their communication. They can have intelligibility issues or articulation issues that make them unintelligible to an unfamiliar listener, and they can also use a communication device to augment their communication. Another reason is that they could have their echolalic, or they repeat language, and it may not be functional for the classroom. So they can use the communication device to participate in their curriculum activities. So there's a variety of reasons why students would use a communication system. And lastly, another reason is a student may communicate in one-word utterances. And by the visual supports of the communication device and the images, they can create possibly full sentences by navigating and elongating their sentences using a communication system. Okay, so other things that we look at, tools, is besides communication assistive technology, we address reading. So some of the reading supports we have are Bookshare. And Bookshare has a wonderful partnership with the New York City Department of Education. It's a digital library. So it's a digital library that supports students that have visual impairments, blindness, or physical disabilities. And what's great about the New York City Department of Education partnership is we have over 1 million titles available on Bookshare. And they're categorized by grade level, by learning standards, and by Lexile. And it's a great resource that you can Google and look up if your student needs a digital library. Another library that we look at, so Bookshare has digital voices, computerized voices, where Learning Ally is also another digital library that we use that has human read books. So it's also has it doesn't have as many titles. It has around 80,000 audiobooks, and it's a reading solution, a digital library that's available on a variety of platforms. For some of our students that may have accessibility issues, we can look at Dolphin Easy Reader, and that's great for students who have dyslexia, low vision, or blindness. And it's an app that you can change the text size and the font and high contrast and the spacing to make it more easier for the student to read. And finally, we have something called Tar Heel Reader that can be used with switches. So if you have a student that has motoric difficulties, they can read books with switches using Tar Heel Reader. Next slide.
Just quickly, Lindsay, which one is free? You said easy.
So Tar Heel Reader is free, and Bookshare is free, and Dolphin Easy Reader is free. Those three are free. Okay, if we're looking at writing, there's a variety of tools that we look at. And one of the two that I wanted to highlight is Notability, which is you can quickly edit notes and drag documents, photos, and audio recordings. And it's kind of like what Sarah used when we were talking about the student for the evaluation. This is a way for a student to create a digital notebook, and it will save everything or sync everything to Google Drive or OneDrive, which are the two platforms that the DOE uses. And you can import PDFs or PowerPoints or images, and the student can either write or annotate on that, or they can speak. It's a great resource to help our students with writing. Co-writer universal, our teachers love this because it's also available on a variety of platforms. There is a Chrome extension. And as you type the letters, just like when you use your iPhone, word prediction comes up and there's going to be a list of words. But what we love about Co-writer Universal is they have topic dictionaries. So if a teacher is doing a thematic unit on solar system, or on if they're talking about growing plants and the student starts typing, it will give vocabulary words related to that unit, and it can be customized. So these are just a variety of tools that when we're assessing your student or your child for writing, we would look at the best tool that matches the environment or the task that the student's doing. Next slide, please. So with math, here's a variety of tools for math. And one of the things that we love that is also free is ModMath. And this is a free iPad app, and it was created by two parents that had a child with dyslexia and dysgraphia. So dyslexia is difficulty with reading and dysgraphia is difficulty with writing. And what it allows the student to do, it's digital graph paper. So if a student has messy handwriting and they struggle with lining up the math problem or overwhelmed with computating problems, math problems, they can put it into this digital graph paper and it will help them organize their math problem. Another thing that we like to highlight is Equatio. There is a free version for teachers, so they can explore that. If you feel your student needs support, they can try it with your student. But Equatio is another math tool that we look at, and they have an equation editor where the teacher or the student can create math and science expressions by typing, and they can use prediction to insert fractions and exponents, operations, formulas, chemical symbols, and more. There's a graphic editor, and this is all digital. There's a Desmos graphic calculator built in, and it has handwriting recognition. So if a student starts to write a math problem with maybe an Apple Pencil or their finger, it will recognize the math problem. It also has a speech input icon, so a student can dictate the math problem and it will write it correctly within the math platform. And everything is accessible and you can edit with this fabulous math resource. And it's free for teachers, so they can try it out with their students. Next slide, please. So if we're looking at executive functioning, we're looking at organizational skills of our students and how to get them to think about the task and analyze it and break it down. One of the great tools that we can use is Google Keep, and all of our students have Google Drive as in Google Suite for free. And Google Keep allows users to use their voice, and it will record what they say into notes. They can organize and edit and share it with others. It's a great collaboration tool for a classroom project. You can also use it to create voice notes or set time and location-based reminders. So if they're doing homework or they have an assignment that they're doing over multiple days, then they can use Google Keep to help organize the task or the homework assignment. Something else that we think is a unique tool that we've used with our students is the Revive Watch or Revive Connect. And this is a watch that's used for students that have difficulty with executive functioning or ADHD, and they wear the watch on their wrist and they feel a vibration. And it's a reminder to ask themselves, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I on task? And they can keep up with what's going on with the classroom. And the ultimate goal of using the Revive Watch is to foster independence and get the student to be thinking about metacognition, which is the act of thinking about one's thoughts. And the pairs with an app that the teacher uses, which produces data to show if the student is staying on task. So those are some of the tools that we use for executive functioning. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about our contact info. So if you have questions, general questions about special education, you can email specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov. If you have specific questions about assistive technology and your child is in District 1 through 32, or if they are a preschool student, or if they belong to Committee of Special Ed and or a charter school, you can contact the Center for Assistive Technology at catteam@schools.nyc.gov. If your child is in District 75, you may contact D75 ATteam@schools.nyc.gov. Next slide. What are key takeaways? So an assistive technology evaluation is a process. It is individualized, it is specific to that student's needs in order for AT to be successful, in order for your student or your child to access the curriculum. Success is from a buy-in from all stakeholders, students, teachers, families, related service providers, and administrators. So it works when we all collaborate to work with the student to get them access to their curriculum. And there's a variety of assistive technology tools, and it's not a one size fits all. So if one student is using a device with this program and it's helping that student, it doesn't necessarily mean that it would help your child. Your child may need a different program or a different system to access their curriculum. Next slide. So for questions and resources, I already told you about special education email, but there's also a fabulous website, New York City DOE's website for Learn at Home resources, which gives you lots of supports and activities to do at home. If you have a pencil and paper, if you can take down the last site, the AT and AAC Google support site, this is a wonderful site that has lots of resources for families. It has videos on a variety of assistive technology tools or screencasts where we show you how to utilize the tool. It has resources for how to do activities at home using your assistive technology. It has tech support answers on there. It's a great tool and we hope to show it to you. So we're gonna try to do that right now. So this is our Center for Assistive Technology site. You can see at the top, there's different pages. There's AAC implementation support. Colleen, if you can click on that, that's our communication resource page. So if you go to, right, so here's great resources for implementing AAC. If you scroll down, there is literacy activities that you can do at home. There is AAC at home activities. You can look at our YouTube channel where we have a variety of communication apps with videos that you can see how they're utilized so you can get an idea if it's something that may be appropriate for your child. We also have a page on alternative access, accessible educational materials, writing, reading. So just take time. I would really encourage you. We're going to go back in a few seconds to the last slide so you can take down this Google site, and we hope it's useful for you to explore at home and see how assistive technology may be able to support your child. If we can go back to that slide and give a couple more seconds, it's at the last bullet point is the Google, is the address or the web address for the Google site, if you can take that down. And we are so happy that you joined us for this assistive technology discussion, and we let you guys know about how the assistive technology teams work and what tools we can use for your student. I see there is some questions that were answered, and now I'm going to give this to Jose, see if we have any live questions.
Yeah, so I think, thank you for the information that you all shared. And I think the first place I'm going to go to around questions is folks are asking if they feel like their child would benefit from AT or needs AT assistive technology to access education. How do they start the process? Who do they go to? What do they do? And so I'll pose that to Lindsay.
Okay, so if you want to consider assistive technology for your child, you would put it in writing to your IEP team or your school-based assessment team. And by putting it in writing, it starts initiating the process for either Technology Solutions or the Center for Assistive Technology to come in to assess your child.
So putting something in writing can sound kind of like intimidating to someone, right? So
Okay,
like, what does that mean?
Hi, I am the parent of so-and-so. I would like my child to be have an assistive technology evaluation. It can be one sentence.
So it's literally just writing a note and giving it to your child's school.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Jose,
you.
if I can add
Yeah.
to that, because just to add, because it's true that sometimes something in writing could be felt like, you're not sort of building bridges. So I would recommend starting to have conversations with, say, if your child is having some communication issues, if they have a speech provider or someone on the team, to start having that discussion. If they're having some challenges with reading or writing, perhaps you've come to tonight, so you're going to be more well versed in assistive technology, universal design for learning, instructional technology. So start to have some of those conversations with the school team, and then perhaps collectively you'll come to the realization that in fact we do need assistance. We need to request the assistance of one of these assistive technology teams to come in to review whether or not my son or daughter needs specific tools to access the curriculum.
Thanks for that. Some folks are asking how they can access that site you shared. Can you just go over that one more time?
Is there a way that we can?
Can I post it in the answer and answer live?
Yes.
I will do that. So give me 1 second.
That's what I was going to ask, if there was a way we can post it.
So I think one of the other things that I see in the chat is that folks are asking about is assistive technology part of my child's IEP? Is it listed in my child's IEP, or is it something separate from the IEP?
It is on the IEP, and it's something that should be considered during an IEP meeting. So not every student gets assistive technology, but when you have your IEP meeting, that's something that needs to be considered. It needs to be a conversation. And if you as a family member or the school collaboratively think that assistive technology is warranted, that's when you would ask for an assistive technology evaluation. It is part of the IEP or a 504 plan.
Right.
So
Jose, if I could just add again, for those parents, if you already have your child who has assistive technology on their IEP and you're wondering, well, where is it? It's in the recommended special education services section of the IEP.
Great.
That's where it will be.
Thank you, David. So there's a question in here about, as you all said, like one side when it comes to AT, and just really when it comes to special education in general, there's no such thing as one size fits all, right? So if let's say that there's a parent who has a child who already has an AT device, but they're interested in some of the apps that you shared today with them, and their school isn't currently using that with their child, how would they go about sharing like those apps and suggesting that those might be a good fit for their child?
Again, that's something they can bring up at the IEP, that, they attended this fabulous presentation and they learned about some tools that they feel their student or child is struggling maybe with reading, and maybe they only have a communication system at this time, but they want to consider assistive technology for reading or writing. then that's something, again, that they bring to the IEP team, and then they can have something called a reevaluation, where assistive technology is already on the IEP, but now we need to consider it for other domains such as reading, writing, math, or whatever they feel that their student needs access to.
I think sometimes when we talk about assistive technology and we talk about assistive technology for nonverbal students, we sometimes overlook students who may not be nonverbal but don't speak because of their anxiety. And so I see questions around that, and there's specifically questions about how some of these technologies can be used to help support students who don't speak because of their anxiety. And I see Suzanne came on screen, so I'm gonna pose that one to Suzanne.
Yeah, Jose, thank you. And I thought that was such an insightful and smart question that was asked about that, because we often consider assistive technology and AAC for students who we see a physical impairment, right, or a physical disability, or sometimes even a learning disability, but we don't always think about mental health needs, and we certainly should do that. And we should do that so much more. And absolutely, communication apps or accessibility features can be used for a student who is struggling with anxiety or even depression. In many cases, it's easier for someone to send a message in writing, in text or email, or produce communication digitized using technology rather than speaking. And so it is a fantastic way to use technology, and something that is completely appropriate. And we expect to see more and more of that in support of our students. And I would also add that communicating digitally is so socially acceptable, right? We all text and use email as part of our daily social lives, as part of our daily work lives. And so it's a natural fit for a student. That's like another way to do universal design for learning. We're removing the barrier of physically, verbally talking and allowing a student to use technology to communicate, which is a fantastic use of technology.
Thanks for that, Suzanne. I also think that sometimes families look at these things and they're like, I need to get this on my child's IEP. And then if it's not a right fit, sometimes families feel discouraged, like, I'm never going to be able to use this. My child will never have access to this. But can you talk a little bit more about like some of the things that you all shared are just available publicly? I know Lindsay's like was talking about apps and was like, this is free. So like there are some things that folks can just use at home, right?
Right. So that's why we wanted to share that Google site, because we talk about some things that are free that families can try at home or use at home. I did see that one of the questions was about a 504 plan. So a 504 plan is if a student needs an accommodation because of a medical need, but they don't need an individual education plan. So maybe they have a disease or disorder that, prevents them from using their hands, like their hands get tired and they get stiff and they can't write because of some disease, but they don't need an individual education plan. They may qualify for assistive technology under a 504 plan.
Right. And Jose, you mentioned before about, it could be a little daunting for families. What if my child got this technology or this support, and are we ever going to have it looked at again? And I would say that one of the features and the services that both the AT teams offer is training to families on AT. And so it could be training on AT that's already recommended on their child's IEP, or it could be training on, trying out a software. Right, a lot of students have Chromebooks already or iPads, so it could be trying out some of the what's called the accessibility features that are already built into a lot of devices, such as making font larger, changing the background of a screen or the text, text to speech, where you speak into the computer and it will write down the text for you. So there's so many accessibility features built into devices and the AT teams are wonderful at offering training, information, supports to families. Jose, they even have developed screencasts on some of these easily accessible tools that we'd love to share out, in a way that you think makes sense, because so many of these products and accessibility features are available to everyone on their phones or on the devices they already have.
That's a great point. And I also think one of the things that we've talked about on the series is and I'm kind of taking us in a different direction, so feel free to jump in. When we talk about supports for students with IEPs and we talk about instruction, we talk about IEP goals and progress monitoring, right? And so there's a natural progression in the classroom of a student learns this and now they move on to this, right? Is there something similar when it comes to AT where a child is using this tool, but now their needs have, progressed and they might need a different tool because they don't need as much help, or they actually need a lot more help. So we're going to switch them to this. What is that continuous cycle?
Can I answer that?
Absolutely.
So I actually just typed in and responded the answer, but directly to the person who wrote that. And it's a great question, is how AT, as I mentioned earlier, is actually a support for the student in the classroom. So the AT team, we come in to do the evaluation, but we can always support the school. So this is something that the school, we always encourage the team, the staff supporting the student using the AT device and the programs should definitely be reviewing every few months. How is this going? Is this working? Is this not working? Has a student now moved on? A student is working with math, now is going into algebraic equations. They may need a different type of math AT tool. So this is something that's very simple that the school-based team should be meeting about and discussing this regularly. How are these supports working? And do we need to migrate over to a different type of tool? Some students may start with students who are younger may start with something they're not typing yet, because typing is not expected until they're over the age of closer to 8 and 10 years of age. Prior to that, students don't really type fluently, but the user may be in middle school now and they're learning to type. So they may move from an iPad type of device to an actual laptop. But those are really easy things the process is pretty easy. Again, we encourage you to reach out to your local school-based team, talk to the teachers, talk to the support team at the school, and have this conversation. Hey, do you think, I think they need something else, because the challenges are a little different. And every year, your child's going to have different challenges. They may not be the same. Your ability changes, and it may change as well. So I hope that clarifies that question.
That does clarify it, and it's a great answer and a great place to close out tonight's session. I want to thank everyone who joined us, and as attendees. I want to thank our assistive technology folks for joining us and sharing more information. Suzanne, thank you for always shining so bright and bringing your team to help support families.
Our pleasure, Jose.
Folks, for those of you all know how this goes. We've been recording tonight. I'm going to upload the recording to the YouTube channel so you can access it again and take a look at the slides and all the information as much as you need to. We'll send out an email with the link to that recording to all of you. And we will also send out in that same email the link to the survey for the session. Please take a moment to take that survey, and it helps us inform how we plan the future of the Beyond Access series, what topics we select, and all of that. And then we'll also send you the link to our conversation for next week. And so next week, we're going to be talking about sensory strategies to support students. And so Suzanne's going to be back with her team, and we're really excited to have them. So please mark your calendars and join us for next week. And until then, stay safe, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Talk to you all soon.